going on, people? We are back. Welcome to Homeboy Talk, podcast of the Immortals. My name is Deon Donovan, writer and creator of the infamous Florida Man at Title Page Comics, and this is my homeboy.
This is your boy Daniel Stinette, aka 𝐀𝐔𝐃𝐈𝐎. Catch me at 𝐀𝐔𝐃 Gaming on both YouTube and Twitch. Like, follow, and subscribe. And this is my homeboy
ORRION online. That's a Ryan online. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You know what we gotta do. It's another round of Homeboy Talk. Let's talk that talk.
Woo! With the PS5 launch in the record books, it's clear to us that there was the one true defining game to get at its launch, and that was Spider-Man Miles Morales. And the expectations of that game has been, for the most part, met. I think people are happy and satisfied, content with the game and everything with that. And y'all two played it and beat it at this point. I think you got all your trophies for it. Was it platinum? Y'all went platinum in that, Jane. So you guys both played the previous one for PS4, the first Spider-Man game. In comparison to the first game, how does Miles Morales stack up to Peter? And did you actually enjoy this one more so than the first one?
I'm one of the few that platinum the game and also revisited Spider-Man Remastered. That also went on and re-platinum that game. So I got 2 platinums for the first one and the new one, you know. But I played it when I was Miles Morales. He's got new powers that I've grown accustomed to. And then when I went back to play Spider-Man Remastered, I was like, man, there's some shit that I wish Miles Morales would have came in clutch for in this damn game, you know, because there's just things I just got used to, you know. Like I just love his Venom punch. Yeah. His Venom strikes are fucking dope, you know. I was like, yo, it would have came in clutch in Spider-Man Remastered stuff, you know. But I love what they're doing with the game. There's a couple of times where I was blown away of the hardware itself. I get it. People are going to be like, "Oh yeah, the PS5 is nothing but a mid-range PC 5 years ago." I don't give a fuck. You know, not a lot of people has that kind of money to drop on ray tracing hardware and stuff like that. You know, but there's some times where I was blown away because I didn't. Well, you know, to you guys' viewers that's been paying attention to Homeboy Talk, I didn't play my PS5 at day one. You know, I waited for a 4K TV to play this shit. And as soon as they patched in RT in performance, I came in at the right time to play the shit, you know. So I played it with RT on in performance, so it was completely new experience from there, you know, but it's all familiar at the same time. So I'm coming in, I'm experiencing ray tracing, you know, seeing reflections in the cityscapes. I'm seeing reflections in the puddles, and I'm also playing in full 60 frames and stuff like that. So it's really, really drawing me in to the storyline, you know, and how they develop Miles Morales as they now call that Spider-Man. They don't call him the new Spider-Man. He's the Spider-Man, you know, and he comes in. Of course, you get to meet a couple of new villains. Then you also get to meet Uncle Aaron, you know, who is pretty much what y'all already know. And, of course, almost everybody else. This iteration of Miles Morales in the gaming universe and stuff like that, I actually liked it because, you know, if people want to compare it to the Spider-Verse, that Miles Morales to this Miles Morales, this one has its own has its own legs to crawl on, pun intended, I guess, you know. And I like it. Gameplay is similar, so it's nothing refreshing except for new moves and stuff like that. The way to enjoying the game because of the SSD that's in the hardware itself, zipping through cities like nothing is a breeze, you know. So I come in and shit like that. Like the PlayStation came in as crutch. It's like, you know, oh, you got that Spider-Man Miles Morales, playing this game is finna be a breeze. So it was playing it, and I will say this because it's something I didn't talk about from previous podcasts, but I did encounter a lot of errors. I had some crashes because, again, I was playing in RT performance, so there were some crashes, and there was time that Miles Morales was sat there and froze, like because they'd be in a cutscene and he's frozen. So because of that great SSD that's handling the shit with Breeze, come in, oh well, nothing really happened. Just dust off your shoulders and stuff like that. But the development of the character with his friends, of course you got 𝐏𝐿𝐃𝐃, and what's the girl's name? Yeah, she's pretty new, but she's a childhood friend that's also that's a huge part of that story, and I don't want to spoil it because it has something to impact for the ending. But it's one of those things and stuff like that. It helps Miles Morales carry weight, because there's things that he's got to bear on his chest now, and it's helping him to actually feel the pain of what Peter Parker is going through, So, like, seeing the development of this Miles Morales and stuff like that, it's a new, refreshing, a new fresher breath. It's a new fresher air of fresh breath of air. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it's a new cartridge of new web cartridge of things, I guess. Yeah, if you want to go there. But I like this. I like how Miles Morales is being portrayed in the game, and it's almost should be like the standard of how Miles Morales should be like in general. Now, I'm coming in as just an understanding of Miles Morales. I haven't been a comic book reader of that character and stuff like that, so I can't really compare it to that fact. But I like this Miles Morales compared to the Spider-Verse, and it's controversial. That might sound to a lot of people, but I like this Miles Morales.
Ooh, bold choice, man. Okay, I dig it. What you thinking, Daniel? Did you like it better than the first game?
Well, I mean, I did for various reasons. I guess the biggest reason is, I looked at Miles Morales as almost like the video game equivalent of Black Panther for the MCU. Just because when Black Panther came out, Black Panther was almost kind of like that watershed moment for people of color to finally have like that big, Marvel, black hero, for people to rally around.
Right.
And, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. But, he ended up becoming like just a role model and just a huge,
monumental icon.
Icon, especially for MCU, like he's definitely one of the pillars of that franchise, and it's sad to see Chadwick Boseman passing away, and with Marvel, not recasting the character, it's kind of sad, but going back to Spider-Man, it's like, we finally have a character that looks like me. So because of that, it's a lot easier to relate to Miles Morales. He's half black, half Hispanic. He lives in Spanish Harlem. In the game, you're walking around his neighborhood and you're hearing people speaking English. You're hearing people speaking Spanish. You see people doing graffiti on the walls, and he goes around to the local bodega, and it's like it just has that very urban New York feel to it, like
very authentic.
It's very authentic. I thought I was gonna walk around the corner and see some guys from Tim saying, "Yo, dead ass B," and I thought, you know what I mean? Like I was halfway expecting that, and so, compared to the comic book version of Miles Morales going to the game, obviously they had to change it up a little bit because it can't be a complete one-for-one.
Right.
Especially with this having continuity from the first Spider-Man game and whatnot. But, they managed to, Insomniac managed to put their own spin on Miles Morales' story. And some parts I actually felt were even better than the first game story, which for Spider-Man, the first game story was actually pretty well done. But in this one, I feel like it was almost even better because it felt a lot more intimate in terms of Miles' relationship with his friends and family and what's going on with the villain and everything like that in the game. And so I felt like it was really well done. Soundtrack is amazing. You know, they had Kid Cudi and Jaden Smith.
Yeah, that trailer was fucking fire.
And just
man.
all these different stuff going on. And then, you know, to piggyback off of Ryan, you know, graphically, the game looks ridiculous. Like Spider-Man Remastered on PS5 looks good, but then when you see like the same New York in wintertime with the snow and just, you know, with the SSD, how fast textures are able to load in, and you're not sitting there waiting for things to pop up in the background and all the stuff going on, and just like the game is just it's just fantastic. And you know, I had a lot of fun playing it. Gameplay, like Ron said, gameplay is still similar. If you play the first Spider-Man, it's the same thing, except now you're using Miles, his Venom powers and his invisibility powers. You know, but other than that, like it's I had a lot of fun playing that game. Sadly, it didn't sell as many copies as the first game did, and that's just because there was a lot of confusion when Sony first announced the game in terms of what this was. I think a lot of people saw this, they thought it was the full sequel to the first Spider-Man game, not realizing that this was like a side story. But Spider-Man 2, like the actual full sequel, is still coming.
Okay.
This was a side game to kind of supplement the first game. And so that, on top of Sony, was kind of confusing as to, was this a PS5 exclusive? Was this also coming out on PS4? There was confusion about that you know, game sites were trying to talk about and stuff like that. So it didn't sell as many copies. And then plus also it's hard to find a PS5 too anyway. So it's like, okay, well, if you want to get the best experience of the game, you gotta get a PS5. Well, where are the PS5s?
Okay.
So, but other than that, fantastic game. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm really excited to see where they go with in the future in terms of Spider-Man 2, the full sequel, if they're going to be able to have some kind of maybe co-op mode or something like that, where you're playing as both Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and Miles Morales together. Because, you know, not to spoil too much, but you do get to interact with Peter as Miles Morales in the game. So it kind of gives you a little taste of what could be. So.
Word. Well, and that's very interesting you spoke about the sales of the game, because as great, that marketing campaign was fucking phenomenal, man, for the game. I mean, they released a exclusive was Adidas sneakers.
Yeah,
shoes.
For the culture.
For the culture. That was in the game that you could actually buy, sold out in minutes. Thank you to the bots and all you scalpers out there who didn't give anybody a chance to buy this damn thing. But the marketing campaign was phenomenal. I think what the tagline was, do you, or something like that, like be yourself. Yeah, which was a really cool and unique way of putting your own spin on certain things, which is kind of what Miles is about, doing it your own way and not just copying or saying I have to do it exactly toe for toe what another person did. And it's interesting you said about the sales, because the Spider-Verse movie also did not exactly sell as typical as it should have been as a Spider-Man film. If you look at the box office grossings of every single Spider-Man movie that released, even the Andrew Garfield ones, it's kind of in the lower totem pole in terms of the numbers. Why do you think Miles Morales is as successful as he is, right? As he's made it mainstream. He's made it to the mainstream. You have a character from Marvel Comics that wasn't made in the 1970s or 60s, made it to the mainstream. Why do you think his numbers are not entirely reflecting his popularity per se?
I mean, it comes down to the points that I just went over. You know, you got one, there was confusion about the marketing as to whether the game was a full release or a side release. And as we've seen, side releases normally don't sell as well as full releases.
Okay.
You got that. Two, there was confusion as to whether the game was a full PS5 exclusive or if it was cross-gen with PlayStation 4 and with PlayStation 5. So Sony had for the life of me, I don't understand why. But leading up to the marketing, they kept pushing PS5, and it wasn't only until like the last few months before the game released that Sony came out and was like, oh, guess what? The game is also cross-gen with PS4, which kind of irritated some people because they're like, well, if that was the case, then I don't need to get a PS5 to play it. I can just play it on PS4, PS4 Pro, and call it a day.
Right.
So there was that going on. And then two, I mean, I don't want to come out and say it,
but there's some underlying things.
I mean, but let's be real. It's a black teenage version of Spider-Man versus the white, fully established Spider-Man that we've known and loved for decades and decades. And, you know, I've gone on Reddit and other different places talking about it and everything like that, and I've seen arguments of people like, well, yeah, Miles Morales is okay and everything like that, but he'll never be the real Spider-Man. And it's actually kind of funny because that actually comes up in the actual game itself, where you actually I don't want to spoil it, but basically there's a mission where you have to do something for one of the people in the neighborhood, and when he's talking to you, he doesn't give you any respect or anything like that because you're not the real Spider-Man that we've known and loved here in New York. You're the new Spider-Man, and you haven't done your due diligence for you to get the respect that you deserve. And you go as Miles and you do a mission and you do whatever like that. And at the very end, the guy ends up, you know, giving you respect because like, okay, you've done your due diligence, so now I can trust you as the other Spider-Man. That's kind of the same thing in real life. People don't respond well to things that don't portray them. So to give another example, let's look at Last of Us Part 2. One of the biggest issues that people have with Last of Us Part 2 is that the main character is a lesbian female.
Okay.
So when you have a game that a majority of your demographic is going to be between the ages of 21 to 35, typical white male, a lesbian...
It's like, I can't relate to this.
I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
Same thing with Miles Morales. You're not going to relate to half black, half Hispanic kid from New York swinging, you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like speaking Spanish, speaking slang, being from the hood. But that's what Miles Morales is. For us, that speaks volumes to us because that's what we were raised up in. That's America for us.
Yeah.
That's not America for everybody else.
Right.
So when you have something like that, they're not going to give it the same shine as if it was full Peter Parker. I mean, at least that's my opinion.
Okay. What you got to say about it, O?
You're right. That was the argument on the internet all along. That, yes, it is a black Spider-Man. That is the main character of it all, you know? And people don't want to adapt. But my argument about, my counter argument about that is this. If your issue is with a black character, that is your main character of your video game, stuff like that. Like, what was that outrage when you had to play Grand Theft Auto and you started off as Franklin?
Talk about it.
You know, what was that argument? Where was that argument at when you played San Andreas? Could you switch out? No, you had CJ.
Talk that talk.
You know.
Talk that talk. Look at the Oscars.
Yeah.
It took Denzel being the bad guy before he finally got his Oscar. It took Halle Berry getting her back blown out by Billy Bob Thornton and Monster Ball before she got her Oscar. Of course, nobody's going to say anything wrong when you playing the stereotypical hood nigga in a game like Franklin and Grand Theft Auto or CJ and San Andreas. But the moment you want to give a positive black character like Miles Morales that has a good message and isn't your typical hood nigga and he's in a good game, well, you know, I don't think that's representation of, really? Really? Shit, okay, but y'all got no problem watching us stream NBA 2K?
Right.
You nailed it on the head, man, both of you.
Check this out, though. What if they came out with another Spider-Man game and they added Gwen Stacy as the main character? Will that Spider-Man have the same outrage as Miles Morales upon the folks in the gaming community?
See, that's a good question because I feel like, as sad as that is, I feel like that game would actually sell better than Miles Morales.
You really think so?
Gwen got sex appeal.
Okay,
Yeah, but It's a white female.
White female.
So she's gonna have that waifu factor.
And she, well, like Gwen Stacy, when was she announced or launched or released?
What
As a character that's part of the Spider-Verse arc.
She actually came as a book related to Spider-Verse in the comic books back in like 2012.
Yeah, so she's a 2000-ish character, just like Miles Morales, you know, and yet, people gravitated to her, you know, so this whole acceptance of a black main character in the video game, stuff like that. I said I don't understand. I just don't understand the issue when people are willing to play female protagonists and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, man.
But when it comes to a black main character and stuff like that, it's a problem, and especially through mainstream games, stuff like that. But however, when is a hood nigga shooting stuff like that, it's not a problem because, you know, it's expected for hood niggas to be carrying guns, stuff like that. But when Miles Morales ain't carrying no guns, he's got web cartridges and new powers and stuff like that. It's a problem.
Yeah, man. No, you're right, because I'll be honest with you guys, man. For those go woke, go broke guys out there, they took this as a W. They took this as a win. If you compare the sales for Spider-Man, Miles Morales on PS4 compared to Spider-Man, the first game on PS4, it's not even close. So they took this as an assessment of, see, what we're talking about is right. You go woke, you go broke. We don't want these kind of products, whatever. And I mean, we've had discussions about these kind of things before, but my only thing about those kind of comments is from a comic book standpoint, these are the same guys who were like, yeah, Miles Morales will never be Peter Parker. He'll never be Peter Parker. There's only one original Spider-Man, and these motherfuckers will praise Scarlet Spider. Like, oh yeah, I love Ben Reilly, dude. Ben Reilly's awesome. I love Scarlet Spider, or I love Kane. I love Scarlet Spider, and that Spider, and that Spider, and it's like, well, Miles Morales is just another version. What the fuck? So it goes in circles, man. It definitely goes in circles in terms of love for that character and different things with that. But moving forth, I think one of the things that I think people have a little bit of a problem with Miles Morales and overall his lore and legacy is his originality of storylines and villains compared to Peter Parker. Does this game address sort of that kind of a problem, or quote unquote problem of his rogues gallery mirroring eerily similar to Peter Parker, where he doesn't have his own, Venom. He doesn't have his own Green Goblin. He doesn't have his own Joker or his own Magneto. Does the game, because I haven't played the game, does the game give us kind of his own shit in that kind of rogue gallery kind of feel?
Well, it does, because it does introduce, because you gotta think, going from comic, there are characters that Peter encountered that come back, and Miles ends up interacting with them in his own way. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, they definitely did bring up characters that have been established in Spider-Man lore. And, you know, as either Easter eggs or kind of like mentioning them or kind of talking about them and stuff like that and whatnot. And so I think that was kind of the way Insomniac wanted to build it up. They wanted to build it up that now that Miles is an established part of Insomniac's Spider-Verse, mm-hmm. that now both Peter Parker and Miles can interact with the characters and it makes sense in the continuity. Instead of in the comic where it was solely Peter Parker's villains or solely Miles Morales' villains.
Okay.
You know? So
okay.
It's combined that way. I mean, especially with the way that they ended Miles Morales, mm-hmm. It's about to get real.
Yeah.
It's about to get real, and that's why I'm saying I'm excited to see what Insomniac does moving forward, because now that you have two different Spider-Men with two different distinct versions of their own powers, like, there's going to have to be some kind of maybe tag team system where you can swap out characters on the fly, or maybe kind of like Assassin's Creed where you can kind of like highlight like an enemy and call one of the Spider-Men in to ask for an assist or something like that. Because there's just too many applications that you could do having two Spider-Men swinging around,
right,
that I feel like now that we finally have the technology to be able to do that, I mean, shoot, we could possibly have an online multiplayer.
Online co-op, that'd be
online
fucking
co-op. That would be amazing. And it's not like the hardware isn't strong enough to do it. I mean, look, if we can have PS5 go and turn a PS3 game in Demon Souls into a powerhouse graphically, you don't think that we can't have a co-op with 2 Spider-Men swinging around at the same time? You sure can.
Yeah. What you think, man?
Well, partially, I really like it. Didn't even have to be 2 players. They can actually go all 4 players, because if they wanted to go ahead, I'm gonna go stretch it to the upon the imagination. They go ahead and adapted the whole Spider-Verse world, where they added Gwen Stacy and they had Spider Noir, and
So you want to have it kind of like that new Batman game that's coming up?
yeah, come in, let Doctor Strange come in, open up the floodgates, and you got motherfucking Spider-Mans coming out of nowhere, out the woodwork and shit like that, and you pick your damn Spider-Man that was swinging around New York and shit, you know?
Okay.
But, yeah, you know, to what Daniel said, stuff like that, you know, it is going to get real, because, this Peter Parker, we all know, I mean, this is beyond spoilers because it's not even in the game, stuff like that, but we all know what the biggest threats are going to be coming towards New York City in the future. We have, and spoiler or not, but if you collected all the costumes, what costumes do you see missing in that game?
I mean, look, I'm not going to come out and say it, but there's a certain iconic costume that we've seen before in the Spider-Man movies that mysteriously has not shown, it didn't show up in Spider-Man Remastered, didn't show up in the original Spider-Man, and has not showed up in Miles Morales.
Right.
But for those of you out there who did finish Miles Morales and saw the ending cutscene, you know what's coming next. And I'm just saying, if we, I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So it's at this point where you have no choice. They're going to have to tag team because at a bigger threat, it's coming.
Right.
It's coming. Okay. And there might be a possibility where Miles Morales and Peter Parker we're going to have to go at it because of said thing is going to happen.
You know what else is another thing that I just thought of too that they're probably going to end up doing too, and it's something that you kind of saw, I guess, throughout the game where Miles is talking to Peter and whatnot. But I think that in the next game they possibly make, there's going to be a clash of ideals between everything, because for those of you who played the original Spider-Man on PS4 and played the DLC, you know that towards the beginning of the game, Spider-Man was very friendly, well, as friendly as he possibly could be towards cops and trying to help them out and things of that nature and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then it gets to a point where, especially with the Black Lives Matter protests and things that happened over the summer last year, and it's kind of reflected in the game with the DLC as to where Spider-Man is not, he wants to stay on the side of the law and helping law enforcement while also dealing with people who don't agree with that. Whereas Miles is kind of the opposite in the comics, and you kind of see that a little bit in the game where he's not as trusting of law enforcement and NYPD, right. And you know, and you know, and his conflict between not trusting the police but his father being an officer himself.
Right.
So I feel like the next game it may explore that dynamic when you have somebody who it could be almost kind of like Civil War. You know, you had Iron Man on the side of the government.
Ooh.
And then you had Captain America on the side of giving us the freedom to do what we want. It's almost that same dynamic. Spider-Man wants that law and order underneath the cops. Miles wants that freedom to be able to do what's necessary to get, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot that they could do with that dynamic moving forward. So, you know.
Here's my scary thing about it. When I was playing Miles Morales, I was scared what Jonah Jameson was going to say.
Oh, yeah.
That motherfucker.
That man,
he can.
Like,
if anything else, if you're gonna villainize a character, you can bet on Jonah Jameson to villainize the fuck out of Miles Morales.
I'm gonna have to YouTube his.
You know, type of like I said, that thug hood rat nigga Spider-Man. He caused all this trouble. You know, it's like this is the reason why cops are this. Like, all right, Jonah Jameson, you cut too close in this damn game. You know, you know, but you counted, but. I'm glad that there is actually some light to this because now you got a counteractive point podcaster in the game now, you know. Right. So she comes in with reinforcements to Jonah Jameson. She there's some point in times where she tests Jonah Jameson and his crazy ass theories and stuff like that. So, well, don't you think Spider-Man did this and this because of this and stuff like that? And Jonah Jameson was like, no, I don't want to hear it. Spider-Man's a thug, some shit like that, Yeah. So, other than that, like, I'm glad that there's some balancing factors and stuff like that, and the fact that Miles Morales is also, he's tech savvy and stuff like that. So now, taking care of missions and stuff like that is all solved through apps rather than you swinging around trying to find missions and stuff like that. Now it's all solved through apps. But yeah, man, like I'm seeing what they're getting ready to do, and the sequel is going to change the dynamic of Miles Morales and Peter Parker soon. So other than that, man, I'm looking forward to the new Spider-Man and the new Spider-Man 2, and I'm hoping that they introduce more villains and it's going to carry more weight. We all know what's coming soon, and we all know that there's going to be even more threats because, like, what was it? We had Sinister Six that we had to face, stuff like that. But we still got more threats. It's going to it's going to carry more weight, and maybe there might be introductions of Sinister Six Part 2 of new villains coming in, stuff like that. Possibility, we'll see. We'll have to see.
Word. Okay. 2 questions, and then we'll wrap it up. For the deal, do you want to see DLC or you want to jump right into Spider-Man 2? And if there's a villain that hasn't been used yet in the games, Insomniac's universe, who would you like to see in the game for the next Spider-Man for villain?
Well, to answer the first question and stuff, to be honest with you, I don't want to see DLC because it's done enough. It's done enough. It's DLC already. It feels like DLC already, So it's an extra chapter, So it just feels like DLC. I don't want to see any DLC. There's no need for it. There's no extra. There's nothing you can actually try to build Miles Morales as the story already done, But for Miles Morales going forward, with Peter Parker and accomplishing those threats, stuff that like I said, I don't want to spoil anything else, but this is almost like you're gonna have to expect if you're a comic book fan and if you've seen Spider-Man movies. We all know that Venom is coming, so the symbiote form is coming to fuck up New York at some point, So we're gonna have to expect to see that, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to stretch the limits and let us see Carnage anytime soon, But we'll see. But other than that, those are the 2 things that I do want to see in the Spider-Man and this gaming universe arc that I want to see be utilized, and I want to see Venom done right. And I want to see Carnage, if they ever get to that point. I want to see him done right. And if you're gonna throw in some additional assistance for Spider-Man, because if things were to happen so really, really bad in New York, stuff like that, I would like to have some. I would like to see Spider-Man with some additional allies, stuff like that. So it's a stretch, but yeah, throw in Gwen Stacy. I'd like to see Gwen Stacy come in.
Okay, cool. What you got, Daniel?
Same thing. Like, no, I don't want any DLC for Miles Morales because the game itself is already a side story almost. It's not DLC per se. It's bigger than DLC, but it still feels like a DLC side story. So we don't need any more DLC for that. And then in terms of villains moving forward, Orion's already hit it up. I want to see Venom of some sort. Maybe possibly a Green Goblin or Hobgoblin.
Dope. That'd be dope.
Maybe possibly Mysterio. Just some of the
switch up the visuals or the gameplay.
Yeah. Just like some of the more I guess more classic characters or some of the ones that we didn't get a chance to really see in already.
Okay.
And just go there. Hey, you could always try to bring in, Morbius or one of those guys. You know what
yeah.
I mean? So, there's definitely more that they can do with it, but we'll just have to see what happens in terms of Insomniac's continuity.
Word. And I haven't really played either one of those games. I know, folks, I'm behind, but for me personally, I think it would be kind of fun to see if the Chameleon was in the game and you didn't know he was in the game until the end of the game. Like, oh shit! I'm not sure if has he been in the previous 2 games?
No.
Chameleon? No. So, it'd be funny if you did side quests for this dude and you didn't know he was a villain. Then later on, it was revealed he was the Chameleon the whole time. I think that'd be kind of fun or whatever. And I think going forth, judging from the movies and judging from the comics and judging from where everything else has been leading, Spider-Man is becoming this big brand. He already was a big brand, but he's almost for these Avenger level events and spectacle. They're involving more Spider-Man and women. So I would like to see a Spider-Verse game where you have multiple people as multiple Spider-Man and women co-op. Y'all go throughout the city, wreck shit, have a freaking boss tower. You fight Doc Ock, you fight the whole Rogues Gallery. I think, shit, that'd be a fucking bomb, man. Spider-Verse game with the Insomniac engine, and y'all just tear shit up as Spider people. I think that'd be really dope. So, for all your listeners out there, let us know what you thought about the Spider-Man Miles Morales for PS5, and what do you expect going forth in the series?
Give us the Fantastic Four tower.
The Baxter Building?
Yes. It's missing in New York. It's deserving to be there.
They're going to have to definitely talk with Disney for that shit.
All right, that's the end of our podcast. Like and comment, dislike if you ain't feeling this content. Download discussion from the SoundCloud. Big shout out to you for being a part of the crowd. Follow us on every popular social media on the platform in the description below.
Thanks, y'all, for lending your ears for another episode. Subscribe.